Welcome to an intro on assessing problem-based learning. After watching this video, you should have a clear and basic understanding of how to carry out this task, as well as feel confident in creating and assessing PBL assignments. Here's a glance of what to expect in this video. It'll start with a quick overview of what PBL is, as well as how to choose appropriate assignments and assessment tools, and the majority of this will be a thorough explanation of an example rubric and how to understand each section of it. So what is PBL? It shifts away from traditional structured models of teaching and learning, where all the knowledge comes from one educator and students are forced to memorize and repeat new findings. Instead, it focuses on more unconventional components such as self-direction, collaborative tasks, unstructured learning. There's a strong emphasis on the process of gaining new knowledge over the product that may result from it. It applies both practice and theory and is student-centered above all. So how do we go about choosing an appropriate assignment and assessment for PBL learning? They need to be assessed in groups first and foremost, so although it's student-centered, this is not individualized work. Although we can identify individual strengths, overall the final grade needs to be reflective of what the entire group has contributed. The nature of PBLs is to work in groups, and therefore that's how they logically need to be assessed. Technology can enhance the way problems are investigated, through the wealth of available information and research methods that are provided to us. This can also increase the rate in which information is communicated not only between group members, but the way it's delivered to our desired audience. Lastly, regardless of the format you choose for your assignment, you want to make sure it's accompanied by a clear rubric that outlines expectations and feedback so that students are able to gauge where the criteria is going to be measured and where their final grade is going to come from. This is just a quick glance at how our rubric is going to be read across horizontally and vertically with the columns, with our grading scale being at the top, and then the separation of organized aspects that our grade is going to be determined by on the vertical axis, and our descriptions of how learning outcomes are demonstrated in the middle chunks between. And here's the rubric we will be discussing today. So as you can see, it was a little bit too big to fit all on one slide, but we will be going through each individual column together right now. The first column is the topic chosen. The scenario discussed is an important aspect in which all types of problem-based learning must be evaluated. Scenarios are created so that they produce robust educational discussion, and ill-structured problems are important in PBL online learning because they help students to engage in complex issues, which introduce challenges and promote team discussion. The problem should be simplistic at face value, easy to understand, but complex in the way it can be unfolded and examined. It needs to be relevant to the subject and course matter, and interesting enough to be challenging, but not so controversial that students become sidetracked. Now the next two columns go a little bit hand in hand, so this one will be a really quick overview. In terms of exploring our problem, you really want to focus on the collaborative work that happened in the group, as well as the diverse perspectives that were explored. We're examining the evidence, if it was sufficient enough that research was done in a productive way and used a variety of tools, and if the problem was explored in a way that pertains to real-world situations. This is why I said these go hand in hand, as when we're looking into PBL and the solution aspect, it is really important to remember that PBLs are intended to be complex and not have one right solution or answer. The educator isn't supposed to have a predetermined solution that each group should be working to find, but rather the grading part of this comes from the depth in which the problem was explored and the perspectives that went into proposing solutions. Reflection is a crucial aspect of PBL because it not only allows the student to focus on their metacognition, it also allows them to feel more responsible for their own learning. Quoted from the 9 principles of good practice for assessing student learning, assessment is not an end in itself, but rather a vehicle for educational improvement. And it's most effective when the learner is able to reflect on and understand what is unfolded. This can come in a form of peer feedback that the group completes about one another's contributions, strengths, or even areas for improvement. PBL can be characterized as flexible and diverse, so it's important to remind students that they're meant to apply their unique experiences and any prior knowledge to the complexities of these tasks. Through this type of assessment, we should never be personally critiquing any prior knowledge or walks of life that someone has applied to work through these problems or the perspectives that they've seen it from. Technological aspects is a rather newer part of PBL, but it is nevertheless important, especially with the increasing amount of online learners and programs that exist today. Students should be encouraged to utilize a variety of multimedia options to display their work. You can ask them to submit an oral piece like a podcast or video, or even a collaborative written piece. Either way, this is going to show their process of learning. The technology used should not act as a hindrance or a distraction, but rather enhance the information that's being presented to the audience. Ensure in this section that you're not showing bias in students that might have a higher level of proficiency when it comes to visual aspects of tech, and that this is aligned with the PBL aspects solely. Keeping in alignment with APA standards for professionalism, included in this video is a brief overview of how to access the Purdue OWL website, which has an easily accessible guide to use for your own reference, and you can show students as well. So really quickly, if you get on their homepage here, you can scroll down and see on the left-hand side your different variety of guides, and if you click on the APA, you can see the most recent edition, a 7th edition guide, and there is all of these awesome resources and explanations there for you. This is a great tool so that both the facilitator and the student are on the same page when it comes to their expectations for formatting. Beyond filling out the rubric, which acts as a clear outline of what worked or what may need more work next time, leaving a short paragraph of written feedback is of utmost importance, especially within a PBL context where the facilitator should use this as an opportunity to ask the student questions which they can reflect on and apply to future tasks. As outlined by both Bowler and Marshall, teacher support and encouragement is imperative in student success, and this portion of assessment will help encourage a growth mindset opposed to a fixed mindset which comes from just a simple pass or fail grading scheme. Some examples are shown here on the screen of the types of questions you can ask that will trigger greater learning to unfold. And this brings us to the end of this introduction video in assessing PBLs. I wanted to close with a couple of comments that really resonated with me when putting together this video. PBL provides facilitators and learners with a chance to make learning make sense on all spectrums of professional and personal life. By utilizing assessment correctly, we can take away that stigmatized fear associated with testing and focus on the effectiveness it has in showing where learning gaps exist and further teaching is needed. Here is a list of the references used to put together this educational video. I strongly encourage you to look deeper into all of them. They are amazing resources, and if anything in this video sparked interest you wanted a little more elaboration on, they are great resources to be a starting point for you. Other than that, thank you so much for watching and take care.